Let's move on to our third mode, the Phrygian mode. So the Phrygian mode is built off of the third degree of the major scale. And we're going to stick with E Phrygian, which comes from our C major scale. And in this mode, we have a root, we have a minor second, a minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, and back to the root. The parent chord is the E minor or E minor 7 chord. You can hear how it can fit inside the sound of E minor. But it's a slightly different sound, and it's important to understand those nuances. So you might think of Phrygian as having kind of this, almost like a Spanish sound. Right? So it's got a different sort of minor quality to it that we need to be aware of when we're playing out of this mode. So let's start to go over the fingerings for the E Phrygian. First one is going to be down here in open position. And it's going to stick right here. Let's play this with the click. 2, 3, 4. It's right inside the sound of minor. The next one is going to be here in second position. Let's do that with a click. 2, 3, 4. You can hear the E minor quality to it. Next one is going to be here in essentially in fourth position. We're going to do a little change when we get ready to play this. We're going to start kind of with the third finger and then shift back to fourth position. This is still essentially the tonality shape, but because of the nature of the fingering, we're going to play something along those lines. So here it is with the click. 2, 3, 4. Next one is going to be here in seventh position. Let's play that with a click. 2, 3, 4. Hear that? Fits right into E minor. Next one, this is going to be the tonality shape. But once again, we're going to have to do a little bit of moving around in order to get this fingering to happen comfortably. So we're going to start with our third finger, and then we're going to come here with our first finger and then shift back to ninth position. And then shift up to get the C. So we can either slide up or we can shift up to get the entire scale. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to shift when I go from the G string to the B string. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to take the same scale and fingering that we had in open position and transfer it up here to 12th. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, the last one that we're going to have is going to borrow from the fingering that we had in second position. We're going to move that to 14th. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. And it fits right in the sound of E minor, the parent chord of the Phrygian mode, and of E Phrygian. So spend some time here working on these 5 fingerings. This is a very unique sounding mode, and one that has some very specific sorts of applications. We're going to eventually start to improvise over just a static minor sound so that you can start to get the idea of the difference between, say, Dorian and Phrygian. But the most important thing right now is to start to memorize these fingerings, start to really understand them, and understand the intervals that make this mode, the Phrygian mode, sound unique in comparison to the Dorian mode. Spend some time working on that here, and when you're ready, come join me in the next lesson. Now that we're starting to get an understanding of the fingerings of the Phrygian mode and the sound of it, let's start to apply it in an improvisational setting. So here I'm going to improvise over a static E minor sound in a modal way, and I'm going to use just the notes of the Phrygian mode to solo over this chord. This is going to produce a slightly different kind of sound than we experienced with Dorian, and it's important to start to be aware of the differences. So let's check it out. So you can hear how the Phrygian mode has a very unique sound in comparison to the Dorian. It's a little bit more exotic, perhaps. So starting to get a good understanding of the differences between these two kinds of sounds is very, very important. Spend some time here trying to capture some of these ideas and make them a part of your playing. And when you're ready, come join me in the next lesson. So let's take a look at how we might comp using quartal harmony in a Phrygian mode. So we're going to do something similar to what we did with the Dorian mode, where we're going to stick to some very specific chords, because that's going to get much more inside the sound of the Phrygian. So we're going to go from this second chord that we had in this fingering, which is going to be A, D, and G. The G is a third of the E minor 7, so that's a good place to start. The D is the minor 7th of the E minor 7, so we have our chord tones here. And then we move up, and we're just going to play through these 3 chords. And then we're going to replicate the same 3 chords in this string grouping. And just by moving between these 3 chords, we're going to capture the sound of Phrygian in our comping. So as I play along with the track, I'm going to play it very simply so you can play along with just me playing the chords, and then I'll start to add some rhythmic components to it. Let's check it out. I hope you noticed when I was playing those chords, I was always trying to come back to here or here. This was always where I was headed to. Well, oftentimes I would start there. That helps to kind of establish the tonic center, the tonal center of, in this case, E Phrygian. But just by moving these shapes according to how I'm hearing it, I can start to represent the sound of Phrygian in my harmony. It's not just these single chord voicings, right? They have sort of a musical kind of melodic line to them. Starting to get your ear accustomed to being able to comp in this sort of way is a really important thing to develop as a jazz musician. So the best way to go about it is through emulation. So I think for you, what you should try to do is make sure that you're emulating exactly what I'm doing, and then maybe start to make some rhythmic changes along the way. Try to see how these relate to the chord sheet that we went over in the beginning of this course. And then when you're ready, you can come join me in the next lesson.